Hey out there survivors, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Survive Reviews. I am here today to review a game that was very high up on my must play list in 2020 until it got bumped out into January 2021. And that game is Bloober Team's The Medium. This is a game that I first reported on back in April of 2020. Once I learned, and I think the piece of news was one of my first news episodes. It was that Akira Yamaoka had come on board to do some of the music for the game. So straight away that got me excited because we're talking about like one of the main creative forces, in my opinion, behind the Silent Hill franchise coming on board for this game, which was Bloober Team's first third-person game. So there was a lot of like bells going off for me of like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing because you've got like the Silent Hill guy, music guy, you've got like this third-person survival horror from the guys who made Layers of Fear. This is going to be amazing. And I kind of built the game up on this pedestal that as it got closer and closer to release, I started to worry, had I maybe set myself up for a fall? But I'm here today to talk about the game, and yeah, I've just finished streaming it literally like a couple of moments ago, and I absolutely, I have to talk about it right now, and I want to talk about it and get my feelings about it known. The Medium is a third-person survival horror game from Bloober Team, the creators of Layers of Fear, Observer, Blair Witch, Layers of Fear 2. It's their first third-person game. It is exclusive to the Xbox Series X or Series S and PC. It is not available on PlayStation or any of those because I believe Microsoft were involved in helping bring it to life. It is a psychological horror game. It's not a game where you have like guns and stuff and you can combat enemies that way. It is like Layers of Fear and other Bloober Team games. It is an exploration-based, puzzle-based survival horror game with, in my opinion, a really strong narrative. The Medium starts off when Marianne returns to her kind of family home, which is also a funeral parlor, to kind of take part in burying her father, Jack. We quickly come to learn that she is a medium and she has to send Jack away, which is part of what she does. Right after doing so, she gets a call from someone named Thomas, who asks her to come to a mysterious place called the Neva Resort. Marianne is initially quite unsure about whether to go or not and is kind of skeptical, but Thomas says that he knows what she is and he is like her. So Marianne kind of makes the decision to head to the Neva Resort on her motorbike, and that's where the game really takes off and gets going. So basically what gameplay consists of, for the most part, is you taking control of Marianne and kind of walking her around these environments, where sometimes the game will split into two screens, dual reality it's called. So on the top screen you will have Marianne in like the real world, and in the bottom screen you'll have Marianne in the spirit world. But the thing is, these play out in tandem, so you're seeing both things happening at the same time, the same world. It's being rendered twice. It's not just it's not as simple as, oh well, it's just the same image. No, it's being completely rendered twice. Super ambitious. When you think of stuff like Silent Hill, which had kind of this otherworld mechanic, this fits really nicely into that kind of category of psychological survival horror games set in kind of dual realities. Through the dual reality stuff, there's some really interesting mechanics and puzzles that require you to kind of like investigate the real world, investigate the spirit world. So you can even kind of like leave your body behind and just be in the spirit world and move ahead a bit, but eventually Marianne starts to degrade and fade away, so you kind of have to return to your body. But that creates again some really interesting puzzle design. One of my favorite things about this game is that the puzzles never felt kind of obnoxious, or one of the biggest issues I have with some survival horror games, especially survival or exploration based survival horror games, is that they have these like obnoxiously difficult puzzles. And I'm not talking Silent Hill or Resident Evil. Like, I consider that those games generally give you all the information you need up front. I'm talking about some of the more obscure, like I've recently been playing Song of Horror or even The Dark Occult. There's a lot of kind of like nonsense that feels like padding, where they could just tell you, a basic idea of what you're supposed to do, and you could then when you figure the rest of it out yourself, you're like, I'm so smart, I realize this, I'm a genius. But you're not. The game fed that information to you in a way that you didn't realize it was. The Medium does that really, really well. It kind of makes you feel like you are figuring everything out and you're super clever, even if it is drip feeding you everything you need to kind of progress. There's no real combat in the game. You do have a spirit blast that you can do, but that's mainly used for solving puzzles. And you do have a shield that you can use, which kind of deflects, like there's these kind of moths and stuff that will attack you, that you can deflect using the spiritual shield. You will, however, even though there's no weapons per se, there are encounters with hideous creations. One of which is the game's antagonist, the Maw, voiced by the incredible Troy Baker, in giving a really disturbing performance as this monster in this game. Troy is doing phenomenal work here. The Maw is horrifying. The stuff it talks about. I actually said this on stream. What scared me about the Maw wasn't the visual of the monster. It was actually the audio. It was the dialogue. It was hearing the awful things it was saying, and the voice Troy was doing made my whole skin crawl and made me freak out. There are other kind of big, horrible, evil monsters in the game as well, that tie into the game's narrative in a really interesting way. I played the medium on the Xbox Series S, and for the most part it held up respectably. There were a few sections where the game struggled with the dual reality mode, and performance kind of dipped. But I kind of forgave it that, A, because I was playing it on the weaker of the new Xbox consoles, and B, because it's so incredibly ambitious. As we said about the dual reality stuff, it's crazy. It's never really been done before. I believe Bloober Team actually patented the technology, which, as we all know, in the software industry is so hard to do, especially with video games. Like, I mean, some games work years and years and years to get a patent, so this is some really neat, interesting new tech being used here. So for me, the frame drops were acceptable. They might not be for you, so I'm just going to put that out there, that if technical issues like that would get in the way of your enjoyment of a game like this, then that might be a problem. I will say that I did try to play it on my PC, which is a bit outdated, and I had everything except for the graphics card, video RAM. And it ran fine up until I got to the dual reality sections, and then it just died. I'd say if you had a beefy system, this would be so awesome on PC, or I'd love to experience it on Series X and compare the Series X and S versions and see what the differences are. But for me, I found it completely playable and enjoyable on Series S, and I was able to play the game via Game Pass. I didn't even have to go out and spend 40, 50, 60 bucks on this game. I was able, because I have Game Pass, I was able to download it and play it day one. Which is cool in the sense that it is kind of a lot of people have said it's kind of a once playthrough game, and while I will probably play it multiple times because I loved it that much, I think for a lot of people it will be a once playthrough game, because it is very story driven. It's not like you're going to necessarily have loads of different encounters each time you play it. So I can understand that mentality of, I'd probably only play it once. But for me, the story is so engaging. Exploring the world is so interesting. I could see myself coming back and playing this game multiple times. I really think what Bloober have done here with this game is really fascinating. The character work, Marianne as a character is fantastic. Some of the other characters that you encounter, like Sadness, Thomas, and even, as I said, the Maw is one of the most terrifying villains I've experienced in a horror game in a while. All in, the medium clocks in at a respectable enough kind of 8 to 10 hours for your first playthrough. I think I did it over 3 streams, so I think that clocks in at about 10 to 12 hours, but I can't really gauge it off that because there's a lot of waffle and stuff and checking chat and breaks and stuff on stream. But I think about 10 hours is what I spent at this game. Which, again, if you're getting it via Game Pass and you're getting it free, is incredible. If you are purchasing it for, I don't know how much it is actually retailing for, but let's say between 50 and 60 bucks, you might be a bit disappointed by that, by the length. But it depends on how much enjoyment you really get out of the game. And for me, the game's story is so strong. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. For me, the mystery and suspense and intrigue of this narrative and the way it pulled me forward and kept me interested and kept me compelled and wondering what was going to happen next, and the background of this character and the background of that character, all of that stuff was so good that to me the runtime doesn't affect my judgment of this game, because if I read an amazing book that's 400 pages, I don't go, oh, I wish this was 600 pages. I'm happy that I read an amazing 400-page book. Visually, the game is not necessarily a tour de force. There's some really interesting designs, and the way it does the dual reality stuff is so unbelievably cool. But I mean, on a purely like, what is the resolution like? What is that like? I guess it's not triple A level in a lot of ways. That's hard to say. It's not going to compete with stuff like The Last of Us 2 and things like that. But I will say that the aesthetic, the actual art direction, art design is incredible, and setting it in Poland was a great choice because the world feels different. It doesn't feel like your kind of American resort town. This old hotel resort that was under communist rule is this really fascinating and interesting setting for a game like this, and it's so different from your regular kind of American small town Midwest, either Midwest or Northwest vibe that a lot of these games have. But yeah, I think that while it's not a graphical tour de force, the visuals are compelling enough that they suit the game, they allow for the dual reality stuff to happen, and the art direction is really nice. I put the Medium up on a pedestal, a very high pedestal, as I say. I was super bummed out when it got kicked from its 10th of December release because Cyberpunk got pushed forward to release on that day, and we all know how that worked out. But I was very bummed out that it wasn't going to make it into 2020 because I kept saying I believed it was going to be my game of 2020, which was a bold statement in a year that had The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and a bunch of other phenomenal games. I can safely say that having just completed it, if this had released in 2020, it would definitely have made my top 5 of the year list. I can guarantee you that. And there's a very high chance it would have been in my top 2. For sure. This is my favorite survival horror experience. Unique, original survival horror experience. Like, not a franchise. So not a Resident Evil or a Silent Hill or, you know, in terms of being a unique new IP, this is my favorite survival horror game of the last decade. Hands down. I'm gushing here. I'm gushing because I loved this game so much. And when I love something this much, I get super passionate about it and want everybody else to love it as much as I do. But what I'll say is, like, if psychological horror is your bag, I have a really good barometer for this, by the way. If you like Silent Hill Shattered Memories, you will love the Medium. That is a really good way of putting it, in my opinion. It's very much similar in a lot of ways tonally to that game, or like pacing wise. So if you liked that Silent Hill Shattered Memories was more about exploration, not really about combat, was about puzzle solving, was about a really strong narrative, you'll probably like the Medium. If you hated Silent Hill Shattered Memories, yeah, you might wanna consider looking somewhere else for your survival horror fix. Well, we've got Village coming later this year, so that's gonna be. It looks like it's moving in a more action-oriented direction, which is pretty cool too. So now I got to get to that really hard part where I got to give it a score. And as I say, if this had come out last year, it would have been one of my game of the years. So I am making the call that I am going to slap a big fat 9 out of 10 on this game. The Medium deserves it, in my opinion. This is what I want from my survival horrors. I love psychological horror. It's why I make psychological horror movies. It's my favorite type of horror. So for me to be objective about this is very difficult. Subjectively, this is everything I look for in a survival horror game. Compelling story, interesting characters, cool mechanics, amazing art direction and interesting monster design and things like that. It's just, the Medium just blew me away. So if everything I've said feels like it has ticked your boxes and you have a PC or you have one of the new Xboxes, go play this game, give it a go, see how you feel about it. If you have played it and you feel differently to me, get involved in the comments. Or if you have the same opinion as me, that's fine. I'm not going to kick you out for us sharing the opinion. But yeah, get involved in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the Medium. I hope you enjoyed it if you did play it. And if you haven't and you do play it, I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And I want to thank everybody who tuned into my Twitch streams of this. It was great to have people there and see them experiencing it like the way I was experiencing it. And I had people who came back week on week because they were so excited to see what happened next. So that tells me that they definitely did something right with the narrative in this game. That's going to be it, guys. I'm going to say what I always say here, which is if you like the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Let me know that you like what we're doing. And also, if you haven't done so yet, I implore you to please hit the subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. Don't forget that we are releasing merch. There will be more details on that very soon. You can get involved. Head over to the Discord if you want to find out more about merch and when it becomes available and all that. And guys, I'm delighted you guys have checked this out. I'm going to finish up by saying what I always say, which is let's survive together, even when there's a gigantic monster that wants to wear you like a 3-piece suit, chasing you, and peace out.